G'day gamers, we're back again. I'm going to do a little bit of updating on my full summer necro build. So today we're going to be talking about a couple of things that other people pointed out for me. So some people were pointing out on the last YouTube about my extra skill points and what I actually did with them. For my extra skill points, I actually chose to put them into Decrepify. 3 points in the Necrify because I have a Sacred Helm. I think for the later gear you can actually get higher ranks of it, so it can get 1 extra point additionally. So I can go all the way up to 8, but I have 7 out of 5, and the reason I chose to do that is because when you get to higher content, so World Tier 4, for example, mobs are a little bit faster as well, so the additional slow is nice, but it's mostly for the damage reduction. Obviously, damage reduction to me and my mobs is great. Enemy afflicted are the ones that do the less damage, so it's 25.4% that they do less damage, and hopefully if I get an ancestral helmet, I get super lucky, it can go all the way up to 26%. I don't know, I'm sure you guys, that some of you have done the higher tier content, damage reduction is starting to become super important towards me and especially the minions, because the minions can have a little bit of trouble dying. As an alternative, if you wish to pump out a little bit more damage, if you yourself want to do more damage, you can obviously do amplified damage, you can put points in there. Obviously 9% multiplier is good. It only, as far as I'm aware, it only occurs for you. This may occur for your minions, but honestly, I'm not sure. It does say only you do extra damage to curse, or you could opt out if you have a longer range play style and you're not super reliant on your cursed or decrepify abilities. You can obviously do death reach as well, because that's a 12% times multiplier. That helps you do more damage with the bone spear, for example, because I know there are some events and there are some times where your bone spear is like sometimes the main cause of damage. One of the biggest cons for this build is on the higher tier content, if your minions die and Army of the Dead's off, is no longer available to use, it's on cooldown. Unfortunately, later content, your minions can die the only way you can. One of the main reasons you get them back is Army of the Dead, and if that's on cooldown, there are some downsides to this build. So there are some cons, but there's enough going for it. There's enough fun going for it that me personally, I can't help myself. I had to run the build. So that's what you do with the extra skill points, because I actually only just got some on my last stream, and now I have all the skill points. That's where I put them. There's a couple things I wanted to talk about in regards to, because I was pushing higher tier content. I changed this. So in my last video, I'm pretty sure I had the miss deals damage and cooldown reduction. But I opted in for this because damage reduction on minions is actually super important, the world tier content. After I did my Capstone dungeon, I went out in the open world, and there's a lot of times there, where my minions were dying and I was sitting there with, you know. So in my last video, you notice that I actually opted for the miss cooldown. I'm pretty sure it was corpse explosions, do miss explosions, and also the cooldown reduction. But for now, I'm opting for damage reduction to the minions. I think that's more important. It comes down to, and it's, a lot of you Diablo fans will understand the difference between doing speed stuff and push stuff, right? So for push stuff, I have this, the damage reduction to minions, up to 20%, which is huge. It allows them to die a lot less. Especially with, and I'll get into this in a little bit, I have further cooldown reduction now in the Paragon points. And also for speed or push, one of the major things that I opted in and out for, so my weapon in my last video, I'm pretty sure I had a Sacred Scythe, but I got this doing some World Tier 4 content. It's a little bit better, but the major difference is because it's ancestral, it can roll a bit higher. As you can see, 70% vulnerable damage is absolutely nuts. But what I really wanted to talk about in regards to speed or push, life on kill is actually super valuable. I really undervalued life on kill. I was like, yeah, it's a faraway stat. I'll get rid of it. It's not going to make a big difference, right? But having now have obviously 52% crit damage is a massive thing, especially if you have crit chance. Except, you know, as everyone who has someone in minion knows, your minions only inherit 30% of your stats, so they only get 30% crit chance. They probably only get 30% of your crit damage and all that stuff, right? But even if you had 100% crit chance, your minions would only have 30%, which, you know, 30% is high, but they'll never ever get that high, right? So crit damage is super nice. This is the scythe I was using in my last video. Obviously, you got a big difference between these two. So this is the sword that I got. It's a little bit better in damage, which, as most of you Diablo fans know, like, the damage number is the most important thing. The damage is slightly better because it's the same, almost the exact same damage rolls flat. It's a little bit more, but the attack speed makes it a little bit better as well. The biggest difference between these two things is obviously going from Sacred to Ancestral, the rolls get much higher. So you'll notice the upgrade 5 out of 5, but the upgrade on the Ancestral took the vulnerability and damage to slowed much higher. Specifically the vulnerable. Don't know why it rolled so high. I got max, so I guess I was super lucky. The things I want you guys to focus on is, again, like I said, speed or push, right? For speeds, life on kill is actually super great. The life on kill would be good for speed gear. Blood mist, trigger explosions, detonate corpse reduces the cooldown is good as well. You can also do the blood mist gains the movement speed on, And this affix, the blood mist, is also good for speed stuff. Obviously, it does a little bit more damage and as well as the movement speed. But honestly, some of the rolls you can get on gear is going to be better than anyway. But that's just an option as for speed. And so as I said, for pushing, I think crit damage is going to be better. If you have some crit chance in your gear, the crit damage is better. But I still think even for pushing, life on kill on your scythe would actually be pretty good. It helps reduce potion usage. And if you don't have any regeneration in your gear, it helps you get some life back pretty regularly without having to worry about, again, using too much of your potions. I just want to talk about that. Speed or push, there's a couple options there, but for the most part, obviously wearing push stuff is always good because you're always going to clear content. But unless you're a person like me who's done a lot of D3, speed stuff's good. Obviously we try and get movement speed in our boots and movement speed in our amulet for speed stuff. Late game, I'm sure we probably roll movement speed off for some rolls. I'm sure some rolls in there are going to be better for pushing. Now, I wanted to talk about Paragons. I'll try not to spend too much time in this because honestly, most of my I did an 18-hour stream yesterday. I did most of that just staring at this Paragon board. So I'd like to think that I know a little bit. Obviously, I'm not perfect. This build is not perfect. There's a lot of leeway on what to do. In the first glyph spot, I've had a conversation with a creator friend of mine, Wars Z. Apologies if that's not how you pronounce your name, but that's how I read it. He was talking about the differences between having exploit and control. He uses control in his first slot. I originally used exploit, this one, just for more vulnerable damage, which at the time worked out for me because I actually needed more dexterity in my later Paragon boards, which I'll show you in a little bit. So I went for exploit just so I can get a little bit more damage as well as hitting dexterity numbers or stat numbers for the later board to actually be triggered and getting some stats. But he made a good point that control is actually pretty good. Obviously, damage to controlled enemies is an additive damage. It goes into the pool of additive damage, so it's not super great. But the key thing is obviously you and your minions deal 10% multiplier. You and your minions deal 10% multiplier to increase damage to slowed or chilled enemies. Or instead, 20% times multiplier to increase stunned or frozen. Now, obviously, 10% times is almost always going to be applied because we have mage minions that do cold damage, and every single one of their basic attacks does chill. At least, I'm pretty sure it does, you know. They fire snowballs, and then sometimes, if you're lucky, or they hit enough times, they'll actually freeze an enemy. So sometimes you'll have the 20%, but you'll almost always have the 10% on top of the damage to controlled enemies. And if you get more points in intelligence, so as you see, I've got 25 out of 40. I need 15 more points. I'm going to get intelligence here and here. And then after getting this willpower, I have intelligence here, and that'll give me the 40 for 40. So down there, the control glyph for me personally, I actually prefer it down there. So shout out to Warzy for that suggestion. If you go later in the build, so I go through here, I got your 20% damage maximum life, obviously because I have the willpower check mark. I did go through originally up through this way. I did the 20% damage and 10 intelligence, but I did that purely for the damage number. It happened to work out because obviously having this, I need intelligence requirements, and the best route for I've seen, obviously if you guys find a better route, let me know. Especially because this glyph is not upgraded. I went up this way. I went for the dex and the armor just to get this, because this gives plus 10 intelligence, but it also gives armor, which, you know, as a character who builds intelligence and willpower and dex, we often fall behind on armor. So this is good to hit the bonus requirements of the intelligence of this, but it's also good because bonus armor is not so bad. But for now, this, as far as I'm aware, to get this glyph activated, the best route that I found is up through here, and then these two here, and then here, and that should give us the 40, right? That should trigger that, and obviously we do 9-man dungeons, we can upgrade that. I don't want to spend too much more time in here because, you know, this Paragon board could take me all day. My initial route went up through this way. Cult leader's here, so obviously if you guys get to this Paragon board, you can actually rotate it around. If you guys find a better route, feel free to let me know or correct me, or if you went a different route than me, please let me know. I'd love to hear all about it. Initially, I went up through here to get this. Just minion damage, attack speed. I was like, cool, because I used 3 different types of minions. I kind of wanted to get minion damage to all minions rather than this, that, or the other, because obviously you can get skeleton mages damage and you can get warrior damage. But because I wanted the base level to be higher, I didn't want to focus this or that. As I played a little bit more, I noticed that the mages are probably doing a little bit more damage, to the point where Blizzard even buffed the skeletal warriors in one of their patches. They increased their damage by 10% because they were apparently they were underperforming. So I went through this way and got the skeletal mages damage. The resistance is probably good, to be honest. I don't know if that's good or bad. Obviously, keeping them alive is good, so it's probably really helpful. But I could not tell you whether or not that was even noticeable. The damage percent, however, was massively noticeable. After that, I decided to go back through this way because I wanted to get minion damage again and damage reduction to minions. These two things are insane. The reason this is insane is because of the dead razor glyph. This dead razor glyph is insane in this spot. I can't imagine there's going to be a better glyph in this spot next to these two things. But again, if I'm wrong, please let me know. Once I get the radius increase on this, it'll actually cover these magic nodes entirely. So right now, just putting this glyph here gives me damage reduction to minions, almost 9%, and the minion damage is 9%. And then the bonus is whenever your minions deal damage to an enemy, that enemy takes 1% multiplier increased damage from you and your minions, up to 12% multiplier for 10 seconds. That is nuts. I'm assuming as long as they hit, they can refresh it as well. So all they have to do, hit one mob 12 times, and then they have their own multiplier that way. It's insane. On top of all the additive stuff that they're getting as well. The reason they're obviously getting additive stuff is the nodes themselves. It's 20% minion damage and 10 intelligence, and then it's 20% damage reduction and intelligence. If you take the glyph out, for example, it's 20% 10, 20% 10. But because the dead razor glyph boosts the nodes and then gives you the 12% times multiplier, in this spot is a massive, massive difference, right? I'm going to do nightmare dungeons on my stream tonight. I'm going to do them constantly to the point where I can upgrade this. Once this gets to level 15, it should increase the radius, and I'm assuming it'll start hitting these borders, for example, these blue ones. It should go one more wider, hopefully, but I haven't tested that. I haven't done my research because I kind of want stuff not spoiled for me that way. And I'm sure some of you know, figuring some stuff out on your own is good. So once the radius goes up, it'll hit more minion damage here. It'll hit more damage reduction here. So it'll add an extra 10% minion damage and 10% damage reduction to the board, and then it'll also increase it as well. So if my math is correct, if once this glyph gets upgraded to level 15, the damage increase to the nodes will be roughly about 76%. Then that 10% will then turn into 17.6%. These 5% will go all the way up to 8.8. And these ones, because we do have the bonuses in them already, they'll go from 20% all the way up to 35.2%. Just from that is minion damage, because of the glyph will be roughly about 76%. So that is incredible. The glyph is going to turn 20% into 35%, right? As long as the math is correct, there's no diminishing returns. I haven't tested it. This is all just theory crafting. So I will be finding out. When you guys watch this video, you can check out the stream if you want. As I said in the last video, it's twitch.tv/EpicSapien. I'm streaming DE4 every single day. I'm going to be finding out if this is going to be as strong as I think it's going to be, because if it is, it's going to make WT4 content far easier once I get this upgrade. And that also goes for damage reduction to your minions. The damage reduction will go from 20 to 35%. And I'm sure you guys know 35% damage reduction on minions is insanely high, because even on the helmet, we're only getting up to 20%. But this glyph is going to take it from 20 to 35. On top of that, there's also two 5% over there as well. So, but they will also go up to 8.8. So that'll be two 8.8s and a 35. The damage reduction is just going to be absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. So if I've done my math correctly, once this glyph gets upgraded and the radius gets increased, by the level 15 is when the radius goes up. That also means that it'll be roughly about 76% extra to minion damage and damage reduction modifiers. I don't know if that's correct. I don't know if there's diminishing returns on the glyphs at some point. But if it keeps going up 4% every time I upgrade the glyph, by the time it reaches enough to get the increased radius, it will be 76%. Which will mean, just from the minion damage here and the damage reduction here, if the percentages are correct, and assuming that, like I said, nothing changes when it levels up, you're going to be getting 52.6% minion damage from these nodes and the glyph, and 52.6% damage reduction from these nodes and the glyphs. So these glyphs, these nodes, roughly about 52% minion damage and 52% damage reduction. Now that's going to be insane for late game, specifically the modifier. Obviously more damage is good, but the damage reduction is going to be super key. Obviously I went down this way for skeleton mages, gives increased damage. With the bonuses, it's 34%, incredible. And then I went down this way for skeleton warriors, getting their damage as well. So warriors and mages are now equal. Obviously there's other nodes here. You can get more increased armor, you can get increased resistance to elements. So if you find them dying, feel free to put those nodes in there, but I'm a damage fiend, so I'm just doing as much damage as possible. Now, I haven't gone this way yet because minion armor and maximum minion life, those seem pretty good. I might put some points into those. I'm not too sure yet. I've been thinking about going to the next Paragon board because I've obviously put a lot of Paragons here. Some of you guys may even be in the next board, but I really wanted to get those nodes. I may get the armor and life depending on how my stats go, but obviously for the next board. So I've had a look through all these, right? Pokemon Monstrosity, Flesh Eater, Scent of Death, Bone Graft, Blood Begets Blood, Bloodbath, and Wither. I've had a look through all those. As far as I can see, the best option is going to be Hulking Monstrosity. As you've seen from the last video, I actually forced myself to have Golem in the build instead of an Essence Generator. So I'm thinking the best scenario, and although I'm not too happy about it because having an entire Paragon board focused on just the Golem doesn't seem that great for me. But the other options, I'm not going to lie, they don't seem that interesting. So if you guys see something I don't, please let me know. Otherwise, I think this one's going to be the best option. But I'm not too sure about it because I have no points in it. Don't even know which way to rotate it. I'm not sure about this one, but that's probably where I'm going to go. you might see that happen in the stream if you come check it out. All right, so Paragon board is done. Another shout out from the YouTube in the last video, Quelling Blade. Thank you for the suggestion. Instead of doing the golem shedding extra corpses, went for the blood golem. Your blood golem absorbs 15% of the damage you would take, so that makes you 15% more tank, which, you know, obviously can be really good, right? The damage reductions. But me personally, as I think that's a good route. So if you guys want to go that route, you guys in your playstyle that you're doing, or you're finding that you're struggling, or hell, even if you're doing hardcore, this route won't be better for you. I'm doing softcore. I don't really care that much about dying. I can just go back and keep fighting the mobs or whatever. I prefer to have more corpses just to generate more essence. But shout out to Quelling Blade. That suggestion was pretty good, and I think that might be the play. As a second shout out to WarZ as well, who was suggesting one of these Iron Golem upgrades. Obviously, the first one, for some of you who don't know, this got buffed. I'm not sure the percentage of it. Someone said it went from like 25 to 150% increase. Not sure about that because I wasn't paying attention to it before and I didn't check all the patch notes. I only checked the patch notes for stuff that was pertaining to my build. I didn't read it all. But this one apparently got buffed, so the damage would be super good. As you can see, at my level, it's 1582 to 1934, which is 40%, I'm assuming, of my damage, which is pretty good, right? Obviously, every 5th golem attack, it does a shockwave, and the reason that every 5th golem attack sounds like a lot, but with the attack speed in the build that I have, every 5th attack is actually not that far. It might actually be pretty good. And then obviously this one goes without saying. Every time it does a slam, it does another vulnerability stack. However, I'd prefer to have me proccing vulnerability just be in my hands. It's the way I play, so I didn't do this either. But those are good suggestions. So thank you, WarZ and Quelling Blade, for those suggestions. Thank you guys for that. So guys, at the end of this video, what you're going to see is me actually doing the Capstone dungeons for World Tier 4. It's a super long dungeon, so I apologize if this video goes for a little bit long. Obviously, all the important stuff I put first, and if you wish to stick around for some of the gameplay of this build being in action, you can see me actually doing the Capstone dungeon, and it'll show you guys how good this build can be on stuff that's actually super high level. You'll see me struggle a little bit, but ultimately the build gets through it pretty good. What I want to talk about is once you do that dungeon, obviously unlock World Tier 4, and you can do World Tier 4 content. The reason that I think you could do World Tier 4 content is after I did that Capstone dungeon, I myself went out into the open world. I did a couple dungeons. To be honest, I got shredded. Most of the time, I got my ass kicked. Sometimes you'll get affixes, as I'm sure you guys playing Diablo 3 will know. Sometimes you get affixes that just counter you and destroy you. One of the key things that I've noticed that gets this build killed is obviously suppressor, as I'm sure you guys know what the suppressor affix is by now. The biggest noticeable difference between World Tier 3 and 4, that World Tier 4 actually increases the elites per pack. I didn't even notice this. So World Tier 3 has 2 elites per pack, and then World Tier 4 has 3 elites per pack, which was absolutely nuts. And sometimes that can be a bit wild for the affixes. They seem to have more affixes as well, so sometimes there's just affixes everywhere and this build dies. Right? Minions die very fast. But I was doing the open world content, I didn't have damage reduction from the minions, and I also didn't have, when I first started doing it, I didn't have this either. So my minions now, because of this node and my helmet, they're getting at least 44% more damage reduction. 44% more damage reduction than they were when I was first doing World Tier 4 content. Now, I haven't gone back to farm it, but I'm assuming like just the power creep you get from Paragons, as well as I went out and got all my altars yesterday, so I have every altar, which is why some of these stats are actually just over, so 267 out of 260, because I went out and farmed all the altars, so that's helped me push over the edge to get some of these bonuses. I can't recommend enough just getting the altars out the way for some of the stat bonuses. They don't give you a lot, but once you obviously collect all your altars, the stats add up and it's actually pretty good. So World Tier 4 content will be much easier. I'm going to show you guys the dungeon. Once you do the capstone, you can go into the open world content, and one of the main reasons you want to do that is just 2 things. It's progression and challenge, right? First of all, I went there just because I wanted to get my build humbled. It was doing a little bit too good, and I wanted to see it get limited, which I did. I got shredded, as I'm sure some of you who watched the stream yesterday noticed that I got shredded. I actually went back down to World Tier 3 to kind of farm up some XP and some Paragons and get some stuff out the way and come back a little bit stronger. And in my stream tonight, I'm going to be doing Nightmare Dungeons and World Tier 4 content, so I'm going to be doing a bit of both. Why I think this build will be absolutely fine once we get some of the Paragon points is, as you've seen from the damage multiplier and the damage reduction, I think once you get some of those, it'll be super, super easy. And another thing I want to talk about is obviously, so that's a Paragon board. I probably talked too much on this, but I might have missed some things. If you guys have any questions or whatever, please let me know. As I said, the initial route was through this way, up through here, and then I went up this way to get the mages more damage, and then when I got enough Paragon, I come back through here to put the glyph. I got the damage, and then I got damage reduction, and then I went down to warriors. Let's quickly on that. Now, what I wanted to show you guys. So this is footage from my stream last night. This is actually me doing the Capstone dungeon, and you guys see what level I am and all that stuff. So hopefully you guys enjoy this. While I have this, I'm going to have this going in the background for now. I'll turn the audio on in a little bit. I just wanted to quickly cover a little bit more here and there. Quickly, I wanted to talk about playstyle and rotation. I'm just going to have this playing in the background. I'll turn the audio down I turn the audio on once I'm done talking, but unfortunately I am almost never done talking. Initially, when you get into a fight, me personally, I use Decrepify first and then a Bone Spear immediately second. So that way the slow and the vulnerable is procced because the 2 damage numbers that we focus on is vulnerable and slow. So slow first, and that is because it stops them from moving too fast, because sometimes when you aggro mobs, they go flying. Some of them jump this or that or the other, but if you hit the slow first, a lot of their animations are slower, and it stops them from getting to you. And then obviously immediately apply the Bone Spear on them, so that way the AoE vulnerability from the legendary affix gets applied, and then a group of them are then vulnerable. So slow and then vulnerable, which hits both the 2 big damage numbers. Now, someone also asked when I use the Army of the Dead. I use that every time. If my minions somehow get shredded, I pop Army of the Dead to get them back. Whenever I see Elite Pack, I do slow, Bone Spear, and Army of the Dead, and then just like go in there and keep applying all those stacks. I also constantly make sure whenever I see a corpse, make sure you always click a corpse with your raised skeleton, because that gives you minion damage as well as it heals them. So one of the big passive nodes that is one of the things I didn't talk about last time, right? It's one of the key important things for this build, and I know you guys probably already know this, but every 5 seconds a skeletal priest heals for 60% of their maximum life, and it's already a base 10% when you use the priest. Gives them 20% damage and heals them for 10%. With these 2 things together, it's 70% life and 10% damage. So just make sure that you almost always use Raised Skeleton as well, every 5 seconds, as long as the damage is up. And if you see the minions dying pretty quick, obviously hitting a couple corpses just to constantly have the heal proccing, it's not so bad, right? Decrepify, Bone Spear, Army of the Dead when minions are dying, or an elite or boss shows up, you just hit your slow, hit your vulnerable, pop your ult, and just keep applying vulnerable. It's much easier to keep the vulnerable, it's much easier to keep the slow proc up, because obviously Decrepify costs 10 essence and it's 10 seconds, right? It's 10 for 10. But Bone Spear costs 25 and it's only procs for 3 seconds. So sometimes you find yourself spamming Bone Spear too much and you'll run out of resources pretty quick. But thankfully we spawn a million corpses. I'm an essence fiend, so I'm almost always just sitting there just spamming generating essence, just so I can keep my minions constantly healed and get their damage and whatever, right? Blood Mist whenever you get hit by stuff that's a bit dangerous, or you just get hit by a CC and just like, screw this, you just pop your Blood Mist, everyone that's played an RPG knows that's just your panic button, right? Whenever you're in danger, use your Blood Mist. Because we don't have any damage modifiers on the Blood Mist, because we don't have any of the affixes that make it better, I only pop it when I'm in trouble, right? That's it. That's the playstyle. I want to talk about that playstyle rotation because some people asked about that, but obviously you can do whatever you want. One of the things that's important about this dungeon is obviously, again, I'm 62. These are 70 plus enemies, being my Capstone dungeon. And in the open world, everything's basically 73. Going from this dungeon in open world, I actually struggled a bit more because the minions in here are 70, and then the open world, they're at least 73 at the very minimum. So they're 3 levels higher, and they also, 3 elites per pack. It makes it a little bit more dangerous. So it is possible to do World Tier 4 after you do the Capstone with this build. Like I said, I didn't struggle much in this, as you can see in the footage in the background. But once I got into the open world, I struggled a lot more. 3 levels higher, as well as more elites, and the affixes go crazy, and sometimes the open world can get in your way as well. As I'm sure you guys know, sometimes you can get ganked by 2 packs, which in World Tier 4 is 6 elite enemies, and those affixes just went too nuts, right? I personally did it for the challenge, but obviously a lot of people, once you get some of this build together, you're able to do that content. People just want their gear, as I did when I went into the World Tier 4 stuff. I got an Ancestral Weapon, as I showed you guys earlier in the video, and the Ancestral Weapon was leagues better than my Sacred one. Even though the damage wasn't that high, the multipliers and the percentages were much better. Sorry that video went on for too long. Sorry about all the information here and there. Sometimes I waffle a bit, but because I try to get all this out in one piece, I wanted to do that. So without further ado, I'll unmute this video now, and you guys can watch the rest of the dungeon. But first of all, I just wanted to say shout out to you guys for watching the video. I actually had a lot more views than I thought, a lot of comments and stuff like that. So thank you guys for that. Thank you for the love. It's been absolutely wonderful. It's been very nice. The whole stream yesterday, I was being blown away. So thank you guys for the love. Don't forget to check out. I'm mostly a streamer. I'm just doing this YouTube stuff as a way to share this build with you guys. I didn't realize how many of you were actually missing a full summer build. If you like that last video and you like this video as well, make sure you check out my Twitch, because I'm going to be streaming every single day. Watch me progress, because tonight I'm going to be doing Nightmare Dungeons and making sure those glyphs are actually as good as I hope they are. So twitch.tv/EpicSapien. Come check me out. Thank you guys so much for watching. Enjoy the dungeon, and hopefully I'll see you in the stream. Much love, much love. What's up, gamers? Sorry about the cut on the dungeon. I decided to remove a hell of a lot of footage because the video ended up being almost 40 minutes long. So I removed most of the dungeon. I did leave the boss fight in there, however, so you can kind of see what it looks like against bosses. If you wanted to watch the full dungeon, however, the Twitch VOD is there, so feel free to go back and watch it through there in the most recent VOD, which was yesterday from today. Thanks again for watching, mate. Enjoy the rest. Boom. Hello? Knock knock. Oh, Elias. Hatred's Remnant. Well, that checks out, doesn't it?
I'm not ready.
Bruh. I don't even know what's happening. Ooh, sacred boots. Oh, it's a sever boot. The Greaves of the Empty Tomb. GG's, mate. Thank you so much, guys, for watching the video. I know that there was a lot of people in the comments and not asking about, like, oh, how can this guy's build be so good and he can be so damn attractive at the exact same time? And honestly, the only thing I can say to that is God owed me a favor, especially considering he let me get born in the first place.